Happy free agency, and we're breaking all the moves down on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Free agency special from DJ Jones signing last night to what to expect moving forward, and it all starts now. The Broncos are back. The DNVR Broncos Podcast is back. Andre Simone is back. Henry Chisholm is back. We've got you here and Dion. They're back behind the camera. Zac Stevens is here and is back with you. And our guy, Ryan Koenigsberg, RK, from what a lot of you know him as, is back, and not just for today, for forever. He is here 5 days a week on the DNVR Broncos Podcast. Ryan, welcome back.
It is so good to be back. Really sucks for the people who don't like me.
Which is no
terrible
one.
Day for the haters.
Really, really bad day for the haters. No, it's been like 10-1 love, so you got to let the love drown out hate, you know?
Oh, of course.
It's crazy, man. It feels really good. It feels normal.
Yep.
Zach, you and I have been doing podcasts together for like almost 10 years now.
Yep.
Which is pretty crazy. And so, you know, every time I hop back on just for one, it feels like we never missed a beat. But obviously with Todd leaving, there was an open spot, and true story, you guys recruited me to come back.
Yes.
I was like, if you guys want me so bad, like, you're going to have to do a little recruiting. I just wanted to feel what it was like to be a recruit. And you guys made me you showed me the love, made me feel the love, and I gave my commitment last Friday.
Well, on this show, it was 9 days ago, or last week, I said how 9 days ago, Saturday night, we had a little team bonding experience. We went out on the town, and is that what got the deal done?
Yeah, like most recruiting experiences, it was, you know, a lot of adult beverages, strippers, drugs, you know, all the stuff that usually gets a recruit to commit.
Now, let the record show, much like Coach Prime, no in-home visits, and we still got it done.
Wow.
So
that is true.
We are king recruiters.
That is a great point. And we are live on this free agency special, going live right as free agency opens at 10 a.m. inside the Toyota Lounge, driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores. We got the whole group here, which is awesome to welcome Brian back. And man, we hit the ground running right now. And it actually all started yesterday. And just to give people an idea of why it started a day earlier than expected, well, before free agency starts, you can sign your own free agents. Any team can re-sign their own free agents, and you can sign guys that have been cut. So Davante Adams, he was cut by the Jets last week, and he signed with the Rams yesterday. Yeah. Well, it's because he was cut. Technically, everyone else's contract doesn't expire until a minute before free agency opens today. So that's why now other guys are going to be signing, and the Broncos joined in on that. They did not wait. Last night, they started getting the ball rolling by bringing back Jarrett Stidham, by bringing back Mitchell Framboni, and then as the sun was set, they brought back DJ Jones. So 3 guys that the Broncos brought back before free agency got rocking and rolling. Man, we're ready to talk about it.
I love it. I mean, the one that I think hits the most is DJ Jones. I feel like he's been a little bit of like an unsung hero over the past couple years, but to me, he's a guy who you can always count on to do his job and do it well. Consistency, I would say, would be my favorite word to attach to DJ Jones. And, you know, he was a big signing on this day a couple years ago.
Yep.
And that position that he plays is just often so thankless.
Yep.
But from that point to this point, I think he's done a great job. And after what you did as a defensive line last year, you wanted to keep that band together.
Definitely. And as I like to consider myself the DJ Jones thanker in media, yes.
Thank you.
And got to write a film room, which you guys should go look at, thednvr.com last night, about DJ and what he brings to the table. That really is what it is. It's the consistency. I think ESPN tracked him with defeating the block on 45% of run plays last year. Second best mark of any defensive lineman in the NFL.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you have that. You have like the elite run stuffing rate. And while he doesn't have the flashy stats, like I think he hit the quarterback 3 times. He had 1 tackle for loss last year. There were 10 other plays where he was a part of a tackle that went for no gain. And so there's all these different things that he does on first and second down. Like Zach Allen says, we wouldn't be able to have this pass rush if we didn't have somebody like DJ Jones, who he considers the best run stuffer in the NFL, to set up 3rd and 5 or longer so that they can actually rush the passer.
And speaking of the DNVR.com, Henry's got that film room up there. I was fortunate enough to break the news of DJ Jones re-signing, break the news of Jarrett Stidham re-signing with the Broncos, and did that over at the DNVR.com. So if you want to follow the breaking news, we've got a tracker going on where I'm updating that as soon as I hear any news. You want to get in on the film rooms that Henry's writing, we've got a special, a free agency special for you going on, $36 right now to join and be a diehard over at the DNVR.com. That's over half price with what we've got going. You can get a Nick
Bonito shirt basically for free on top of a year of Die Hard content. So all this great content popping up. Not to mention Nugs and Avs, hot stove season. Everything's been awesome coming out of that. And then you get discounts on our merch, on our events at the DNVR Bar. It is a stupid deal. On top of that, you get to support your guys, a company that believes in you, believes in the Denver sports fan, and what you deserve. You deserve the best merch, the best content, daily coverage. If you believe in that, if that's worth, I don't know, a cup of coffee from 7-Eleven,
a cup of coffee a month?
Starbucks, you're not going to be able to.
No,
but you sacrifice 1 cup of coffee a month, wink, wink, double up, it's fine. Or start a drinking habit, and then you don't need the coffee.
No, you need it more.
Well, but then
Die
you have
Hard
to
member
from experience.
Yeah.
Then
you have to pay for the drinking. But it does.
Well,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
At
Well,
least you
sure.
You can take the
but
coffee.
You're saving on the
Yes.
coffee.
That's
You are
great.
saving on
They're
the coffee.
different
This
rows
is our
of the
general
price.
manager, ladies
You are
and
right,
gentlemen.
Dre.
The general manager of
I'm
DNVR.
convinced.
Good at math. He's good at math.
I believe in you
just-
guys.
I got to say, last time that I was on this show full time, we like to kind of poke fun at insiders. And I would just like to say, just because you are one now, I'm not going to stop doing that.
That's okay. Hit me.
And also, I forgot to say this off the top, but I just wanted to say how much that this Broncos community means to me. It really is one of the first communities that we cultivated when we started this company. And the love that the people that have been there from the beginning have always showed us, and then showed me while I was gone. It was the DM here and there being like, please come back. That honestly helped make this a lot easier. So doing 2 shows a day is easy when you have the support of all of the people who have been diehards for all this time and all the people who are going to become diehards now.
Yeah, and I gotta say, from that perspective too, it's so cool. Last night, it's cool to break news, but then it's even cooler when your mentions are flooded with so many guys and gals being like, "Oh, I love the signing, hate the signing," but then so many people supporting me personally. I'm just here to give you guys the news, but that is so cool, and it just speaks to the community right there. And so again, go check out the DNVR.com if you want to become a diehard. And what a day, Ryan, for you to be back. You broke Twitter this morning, right when we announced that you were coming back. Twitter went down. Right when we tried to go live for your first show back, YouTube goes down, and we have some NFL breaking news, which kind of impacts the Broncos right now. And this is coming from Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin re-signing with the Buccaneers for over, $20 million a year right now. To me, though, this isn't really Broncos news, guys. To my understanding, the Broncos weren't interested in Chris Godwin. I said it all of last week, do not expect them to sign a big-name free agent at the wide receiver position. Sean Payton likes this room a lot more than anyone else in the world. Now, they might add a wide receiver 3, what they did last year, Josh Reynolds, $4.5 million. They could very well do that in free agency. But Chris Godwin, it was a name that a lot of Broncos fans had on their board. From my understanding, the Broncos did not.
Zach, correct me if I'm wrong here, but just following and listening to some of the things that you've said, it feels like medicals are really important to the Broncos in this free agency cycle. Is that fair to read into?
Yes, that Depends on the player, I
Okay.
guess, because the other news that we need to dive into, which I'm sure people are chomping at the bit for, Evan Engram is visiting the Broncos right now. He is in town visiting the Broncos, and you might say, well, why is he visiting and not just getting a contract with them? Well, he had that injury last year, which sidelined him for 8 games, so they're making sure that he's okay. But there's other guys that we'll talk about that have more medical history and a deeper medical history that, yeah, Ryan, I completely agree with.
Well, and I don't even think it has to be like you had a perfect, clean bill of health. It's how do we feel like you've recovered from that? And, now we have so many advanced statistics to tell you exactly how these guys are doing coming off of injuries, and even, just being able to evaluate them when they come in for a workout. So I think that's good. I mean, of all the years that we've been doing these free agency specials, there's so many times where you end up getting a guy that you're really excited about and the medical history rears its ugly head, which is not to say it's not going to happen with anyone they sign this time, but it is something I think that you have to pay attention to as to why this guy's available in the first place at this time of year.
And that's why Evan Engram is in Denver right now to get his shoulder checked out by the Broncos doctors. I think Kliss was the one who said that. Somebody said that. And so, I mean, you figure it out, see if you are happy with the way it's recovering. And if it is, then I'd imagine they get the deal done and bring him to Denver.
Well, it pertains to another guy that popped up on Twitter this morning, Dre Greenlaw, who Mike Silver was saying the 49ers are trying to hold on to, but there are 3 teams in the mix, and he mentioned the Broncos as one of them. I get the feeling you guys are pushing hard for me to be the only Dre in Broncos country.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's dive into that because I have some information on that after I give a shout out to our friends over at, it's a very fun place where you want to get in on now. It's our friends over at Bet365. We got Nuggets tonight, guys. Bounce back game tonight.
Yes.
And they got to be plus money, too.
Best team in the world on back-to-backs.
A horse is a
Love
horse,
it right
of course,
there.
of course. Broncos to sign Cooper Kupp plus 500 on Bet365.
Ooh, I like that. We can talk
You
about
can't
that
bet
later,
on it.
too,
That's
now.
insider trading.
That's
Stay
probably
away.
true. I'll stay away. But if you want to get in on that, I like where Dre's mind is thinking right there. You can get on free agency. You can get on the Nuggets to beat the Thunder tonight. You can get in on the Avs championship odds. You can get in on everything over at Bet365. If you think of a bet, Bet365 has it because they're never ordinary. So they've got everything you could imagine. They've got free agency props. They've got draft props if you're thinking of the draft already, like our Dre is already thinking about the draft. And you can do it with bonus bets because if you use the code DNVR when you sign up over at Bet365, place a $5 bet after depositing $10. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. And that's using the code DNVR over DNVR365 over at Bet365. Must be 21 and older. Physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, once help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
And shout out to Red Hawk Roofing. They're big supporters. Oh, that's right, the Ka.
Yeah.
There was one time I was listening to the Nuggets post-game show, and I was in King Supers, and I was just like walking down the bread aisle, and the Ka was way louder than the rest of the show. And so I had my AirPods in, and like just out of nowhere, just Ka right in my ears, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I like jumped in the bread aisle. But we love Red Hawk Roofing. They're the best. They're big Denver sports fans. I think some of our business people went to the Avs game against the Sharks with them last week because that's the kind of stuff they do. The big Nuggets fans, big Avs fans,
they're
of course.
diehards.
Big
Being in
Broncos
Denver,
fans.
who isn't a big Broncos fan? If you need to get your roof checked out, that's the place to go. They'll give you a free in-depth photo report, a free no obligation roof and property inspection. Again, they're big supporters of us and they're great at their job. Quality materials, decades of experience, quick response time, Colorado's best estimators and contractors. So supporting your local teams means also supporting local businesses like Red Hawk Roofing. If you are looking for a new roof over your home or business, be sure to check out Red Hawk Roofing at redhawkroofing.com or call 720-771-8921 and tell them DNVR sent you.
Jesse here says, RK already swooped Zach's chair. Actually, other way around. Zach went power move on me today. He's like, you might be back, but I run the show here now and just took my chair, actually.
No, he needs an out for insider breaking calls.
I feel like he should just answer the calls right here on the show and we'll all just stare at him while he's on the phone.
Epic.
Yeah, that would be nerve-wracking in front of the mic.
And then
be
you're
fun.
like, okay, yep,
High stakes,
I won't say
baby.
anything yet. We're like, come on, tell us.
I gotta say, man, especially getting a couple of scoops last night, then you try to confirm, and when you're waiting on a phone call back or a text back, that is the most nerve-wracking moment.
Totally.
Right there. It's an interesting business to be in. But guys, so and really quick, shout out to everyone that's tuning in with us in the Toyota chat. Ryan, you said it. This community is what makes this special. What allows us to do what we do, what allows us to connect with you. And like I said, one of the coolest things is all the support that we get from you guys. So shout out to everyone tuning in with us. Hit us with a thumbs up if you're tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you like Ryan, hit us with a thumbs up. What's your number? Todd's was 51. So we tried to get to, 510 likes on his final show.
Mine's 11, so 1,100.
1,100. Boom. Let's hit it.
And honestly, we need the extra help today because with all the issues on Twitter, we're not getting boosted out to as many people. So by you hitting the thumbs up, you help us reach new listeners.
Yep, 100%. Okay, so Dre, you mentioned Dre Greenlaw here,
right.
and let's dive into what happened with the inside linebacker position yesterday, because when we ended the show on Friday, it was, I think, Bobby Wagner had just signed, but there was still Nick Bolton. There was still Sherwood on the board. There was still
Levante David,
Robert Spillane. There was still like top-notch talent. In fact, if you were to take a step back, there wasn't just top-notch talent inside linebacker. The top talent in free agency was at inside linebacker. And now you look this morning and you're like, well, it's pretty much dried up completely almost. Nick Bolton signs a 3-year, $45 million deal with the Chiefs. Then, just a couple hours later, Sherwood signs a 3-year, $45 million deal with the Jets. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, this inside linebacker market is booming right now. And what I'll say is if those guys hit free agency, let me tell you, they messed up signing yesterday because the Broncos were going to be very interested in at least one of those guys, either Bolton or Sherwood. They were going to get paid. I have no idea why they signed a deal with their own team 20 hours before hitting the open market. So then that leads into, okay, well, who's still available right now? Robert Spillane, inside linebacker for the Raiders, who's a tackle machine, wears that black visor and looks, unfortunately, pretty dope for the Raiders when he plays. You have Dre Greenlaw, who is a monster when healthy, but the big thing is when healthy. And to me, guys, Dre Greenlaw, speaking to sources with the Broncos and outside, he was going to be the top inside linebacker if he wasn't hurt. But he's hurt, and he misses 40% of the games right there. And from my understanding, that's really spooked the Broncos. There's a report, I believe, from Mike Silver saying the Broncos are in on him only because they're desperate, from my understanding, if that's the case.
How do you feel about all this, Hank? I think the Singleton deal looks great. I think the Drew Sanders opportunity looks good, but at the same time, what Zach's talking about shouldn't be too comforting for those guys.
Yeah, but personally, I think they kind of dodged a bullet when it came to Nick Bolton. Like, I think, again, he's a good football player, but $15 million a year for kind of that two-down linebacker who's just plugging gaps in the middle.
Yeah.
Again, like you let Josie Jewell walk for a $6 million a year contract last year. If you love Nick Bolton at $15 million a year, how could you not love Josie Jewell at $6 million a year? So I know the Broncos really liked him and they wanted him, but to me, that would not have been a great idea because, again, like I still think that Alex Singleton's the better cover linebacker of those guys. Like your dime linebacker, nickel linebacker, like that's the guy you want out there.
Yeah. To me, this goes back to the conversation we had last week about, like, I feel like I'm as high as anyone on the value of running backs and linebackers. But you have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. To me, it's like almost overpay for the elite guys, but don't overpay for the tier below that.
The middle
and
class,
that's what this feels like a little bit. The one thing I'll say is, like, if there's one place on the Broncos roster where they were really going to spend because there's not as much talent in the draft, it would have been inside linebacker. So if you were going to splurge on one of those guys, I think it would have been fine, considering the fact that this is kind of your one chance to really, improve that area.
When we talk, really quick, Dre, when we talk about how the Broncos view things, Sean Payton has admitted there's must-haves, which you must have in an offseason. There's needs, which is like the next step below, and then there's wants. And Henry and I broke this down last week, and we were kind of on the same page. The must-haves for the Broncos this offseason: inside linebacker, tight end, and running back. Then needs, you drop down to that next level. Maybe it's interior defensive line before the Broncos re-sign DJ Jones. But looking at that top group, Ryan, you're spot on. In the draft, running back is great, tight end is great. So you can wait till the draft to get your guy there. You can't do that. I mean, I think our guy Fran Duffy, our draft expert at All City, has one inside linebacker going in like the top 2 or 3 rounds in this draft. So you can't count on that. So that's why you had to go out. And I think the Broncos felt like they needed to address inside linebacker and do feel like they needed to address inside linebacker. And what you're saying, Ryan, I think the Broncos might have been lucky that these guys re-signed with teams yesterday, because you talk about how teams are overpaying for the top talent. The Broncos, from my understanding, would have done that big time. And it's not just to Nick Bolton. They sure would. But nothing you can do about it if they don't even hit the market.
Well, I think you're starting to really feel that Sean Payton influence. Because under George, I don't know, it kind of felt like a continuation of the Elway philosophy of like, you can kind of find linebackers. Which, in fairness to Elway, they won a Super Bowl with Danny Trevathan and Todd and guys like that.
And you
Brandon
even look
Marshall.
at last year. Cody Barton comes in and plays well. Justin Snow comes in and plays
100%,
well. They signed Quan Alexander. He comes in and plays so well that he signs with a different team. You bring in Zach Cunningham. He plays pretty well.
Right.
Yeah.
And you feel good about the Singleton contract again. Looks amazing.
Oh, yes.
Also, thinking draft, Evan Ingram's in town visiting. If they got him, where does, the Joker tight end move on down the need list, and where does linebacker kind of move up all of a sudden as you start reprioritizing? And then where's running back factor into all that, right? Because I don't know, Zach. We've seen Sean draft round 1 running backs before.
Yep.
Could he do that again if it's not Ashton Genty at 20?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think he could. And it's such a good point. And Ryan, you were kind of making a hand gesture of where does tight end go? Where does the Joker position go in terms of the Broncos' needs in the first round if they do sign Evan Engram today?
Down.
How far?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on how we define the Joker, which I
can't believe you guys don't like the Joker term. I absolutely love it.
I'm searching for Joker makeup for
it's a
draft day.
catch-all.
Don't you worry, Zach.
It's a catch-all.
You're looking for what?
Joker makeup for draft day.
Oh,
you
yes.
might be at
Is that
Dove Valley
you?
in a purple suit.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
To me, I think tight end would obviously drop way down, but you're still looking for mismatches, whether that be from the running back position, kind of scat back like Debo Samuel role, which I know Marvin Mims did a good job in, but maybe you go for a bigger version of Marvin or something along those lines. So I think it's still going to be top of mind. I mean, that's what the Sean Payton offense is all about, is finding mismatches and exploiting them. And I know that sounds like what all offenses should be about, but you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So it's moving down. I still believe that the Broncos should try to go get Jalen Conyers in the draft. And I looked recently, and he's projected as like a 5th-ish round pick. To me, just that combination of size and athleticism is really, really intriguing. And I would love that if you get Evan Engram and then, draft it, take a flyer on another tight end later in the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the tight end need is solved. Like, and I think that should be the goal in free agency. You patch all your needs so that you can go more best player available. And if the best player available is a tight end, which it probably will be at some point because there's so many, then you go get it. But Evan Engram, when he's healthy, is ridiculously productive. And people forget that. Like, over the course of his career, including the beginning when he was a disappointing first-round pick, a bust, 775 yards per 17 games played. That's a big number. Yeah. Last year, that would have ranked second among all the Broncos. The year before, that would have led all the Broncos. There's been one tight end since Shannon Sharp who's had 775 yards in a season. That's Julius Thomas, who had 788.
Wow.
You go back and
people, like, other than the way it ended, people remember Julius Thomas's prime very, very fondly.
Exactly. And so you're saying, like, this is a guy who consistently outperforms what Julius Thomas did in that Peyton Manning year where his numbers were at their best. If you just take out the Giants years and say, what has he been the past 3 years with the Jags, goes up to 827 yards per 17 games. Yeah. That's happened 5 times in Broncos history. Shannon Sharp 4 times, Riley Odoms once. Like, he is insanely productive. 3rd in the NFL among tight ends in receiving yards in 2023. Obviously got hurt last year. And I mean, there are the injury concerns. He'll be 31 before the season. I think you get at least like 2 good years out of a tight end because like tight ends in their 30s, that's never been an issue.
Yeah.
So to me, like you bring that guy in, your tight end issue is solved. Not only that, but you're probably having one of the best tight ends in the NFL in a Sean Payton offense.
And speaking of the jump that you would take, the Broncos tight ends collectively had 51 catches last year. Evan Engram had 61, and that was when he only played 9 games as well. The year before that, though, just to talk about how dynamic Evan Engram can be, 114 catches.
Yeah.
As a tight end
Wow.
in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, who is not this great generational quarterback that people expected him to be. He is so dynamic, and he had almost 1,000 yards that season. But what he brings is a third down chain mover, someone in the middle of the field that the Broncos lacked big time last year. They've got Marvin Mims to take the top off of defense. They've got Courtland Sutton to make every single contested catch down the sideline as well. Evan Engram would solve all of those problems. And thank you to the Jacksonville Jaguars for just letting him go and be a free agent a couple days before free agency started.
Thank you for those stats, Henry. I feel like
Yes.
that role that you play on this show is underrated. Anyway,
21st all time is in the Super Bowl era in receiving yards per game as a tight end.
these guys' narratives around their careers get so written so early. You said it. The guy was considered a bust early on in his career,
Yes.
and then people just are like, "Oh yeah, Evan Engram, just a guy." And when you hear that, that's really, really exciting. Like, I feel like the response and the excitement over him being in the building right now, even for myself, hasn't lived up to those numbers.
Totally.
It does solve the tight end.
There's your Joker.
That being said, you would still probably want to get some more talent into the room.
Well, here's the thing for me,
100%.
especially in the draft,
100%.
and Dre, you probably know, Dre and Henry, you guys know, this is such a loaded tight end draft. I mean, Tyler Warren, top 5 talent in this draft. Colston Loveland is now absolutely unanimously regarded as a first-round pick talent. But then you look at Fannin, you look at Arroyo, you look at so many of these other guys that are really good that might fall to the 3rd round because of how much talent there is. If you get Evan Engram, he's going to be, 31 this year? I still say you pick up one in the 3rd, but you're not desperate. And that's what you're supposed to do in free agency, is make it so you can go into the draft and not be desperate. And now, look, the Broncos were desperate for a quarterback last year, and they got lucky because of how deep of a group it was. And they got the 6th one, and it turned out to be their guy, and that worked out. You don't want to do that consistently year in and year out. So you go and get Evan Engram. You don't need Colston Loveland. If Colston Loveland falls to you and he's the best guy, you could still pick him. But more so, you're looking at that 2nd and 3rd round to get another tight end. And then imagine going from the room they had last year to Evan Engram and Arroyo. Oh my gosh, you're sitting pretty. And one more thing about this, tight ends, typically Brock Bowers is the anomaly. Tight ends typically need a couple of years to develop and turn into what they can be in the NFL. So you get a young guy in the 3rd round, and he turns into Evan Engram in 3 years, right as Evan Ingram's contract's expiring with the Broncos.
Absolutely.
Do you guys worry at all about him being 31?
Yeah.
He'll be 31 the season starts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short-term stopgap, and I think right now he's more of a safety blanket for Bo than a true mismatch joker for that offense. And that's okay because it's a massive upgrade from what you already had. You know, that production speaks for itself.
How old is Travis Kelce?
36.
Ancient.
How old is George Kittle?
He's a year older than Evan Engram.
How
No,
old?
George Kittle's about to be 35 this year, I think. 34.
Those guys
Really?
have been,
I believe so.
last couple of years.
No,
haven't been
just
the
hear me
best.
out. How old is Mark Andrews?
Old.
Okay, a year younger than Evan Engram.
All I'm saying is
Zach Ertz, one of the best years of his career.
exactly. We have seen
Yes, Zach Ertz. There
tight
you go.
ends
Zach Ertz was
produce
who I was
well
thinking.
into their 30s. And yes, you do start to taper off as you get to the mid to late 30s. But 31 is not like the fall off number for the position. 31 at running back, you're really worried. 31 at tight end, you're not.
Yep.
Also, just as a human being in the world, early 30s versus mid to late 30s, world of difference.
Don't
think
tell
I
me
just-
that. Don't tell me that. I'm
Zach,
getting
it's-
up there.
I
It's
think I
true,
just
man. I can
entered-
tell you from experience.
Did I just enter my mid 30s yesterday? 33?
Wow.
Yes.
No,
also,
no.
big happy birthday. There was
Yeah.
so much going on at the start of the show. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
33 is last year of early 30s.
All right,
Don't-
let's go, baby.
don't
Early
suck.
30s.
You're a youngin'.
Don't sacrifice that.
All right.
Yeah.
And Ryan, I want to give a shout out to our friends who you might have got a gift from yesterday. Our friends over at the very special place of Toyota. Were you gifted a Toyota yesterday for your birthday?
If I was, it might have been lost in the mail.
I don't think Toyotas get lost in the mail.
Okay,
I think
okay.
those things show up on your front porch with just a giant bow on
I've
them.
always wanted that.
Which one are you going with? Are you going with the Supra, like the sports car look? You going with the Prius, which now looks like a sports car? Or are you going with their new RAV4 or their new Land Cruiser? Or are you going with the truck? Of course, their Toyota iForce Tundra Max hybrid truck.
I have always been a 4Runner
Yeah.
lover, so that's kind of what I've been set on. But I also really like that new Land Cruiser.
Dude.
They had that one on the set at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And every day I walked past that and I was like, dang, that's goals.
Dude, that is me exactly. Since the 4Runner came out, I've been, especially the rebrand like 10 years ago, I've been in love with it. But now this Land Cruiser,
It's clean.
I'm sorry, 4Runner. Land Cruiser's stolen my heart. And if you want to get in on a Toyota, visit a local Front Range Toyota store at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official vehicle of the Denver Broncos and the official vehicle of DNVR.
And shout out to Coors Light. Did you have Coors Lights last night?
I didn't. So I'm on a Coors Light actually fits in my diet, but I've been
really?
trying to cut back on beers.
Impressive.
Yeah, that's fair.
Wow.
I'm a big
Who
Coors
can
Light
resist
fan.
a good
I'm,
Coors Light, though?
I'm really hoping to go
Silver
to
bullet
the
goes
Avs
down
play
easy.
the Stars on Sunday,
Facts.
which is going to be an incredible game.
Oh,
Correct.
And I want to go, and I think I'm going to clap because they'll do the tribute video for Miko. But some people are going to be booing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I want to be there to try to balance some things out, you know. But I'm gonna really balance
for
them out
you.
after I
Good
have a
for
few
you.
Coors Lights beforehand.
Usually, okay.
Wait, usually what?
Usually the few Coors Lights makes you consider booing a little more
Yeah.
strongly.
I did boo Bones Highland after some Coors Lights, and then I felt a little bit bad after. Well, years after when he really failed in the NBA. But that won't happen to Miko, unfortunately, because we hate the Stars. But yeah, Coors Light makes everything better, whether it's clapping for Miko or booing for Miko or whatever you feel like you've got to do. They've got them obviously at Ball Arena. They've got them at the DNVR Bar, which is where we drink a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Watch parties tonight will actually be fun. Avs and Nuggets tonight, the back-to-back. So Coors Lights. Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. Coors Lights are great wherever you want them. If you want them at your house, you can choose chill this winter by reaching for Coors Light. Get it delivered straight to your door by visiting CoorsLight.com/DNVR, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Avs have officially unlocked wagon mode. That's what I was going
I
to say.
agree. I made a bet the morning of the trade deadline at plus 1,100. Moved down to plus 900 right after. I was
Plus
like, nailed
750
it.
now.
I was at the game on Saturday for my birthday, and I was just watching. Like, they were down 2 goals. I was like, there's no chance we lose.
Yeah. Did you make the bet?
Yep.
Yep. Me too.
Yes. So cashed at what odds?
I think I got it at like plus 320.
I can't remember. It was right around
That's
they were
there.
down
huge.
too? Yeah.
That is huge. What a nice early birthday present
It was.
for you.
It was.
Yeah.
Man, and guys, I'll tell you what. So Avs are 100% in championship mode or bust right now, and I love that. Nuggets are in championship mode. They didn't make the moves to necessarily say bust, but they're in championship mode. And the
sure
Broncos, you what?
Nothing.
Oh, the Broncos 100% believe they are in Super Bowl mode right now, which means they're not afraid to sign and they're not afraid to get guys in free agency and spend the money.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about this at some point, and right now is actually a perfect time. The Broncos, so the Avs and Nuggets, we honestly, our company kind of followed their progress. And when you look back at like the most fun seasons for those teams, it's the year after the Nuggets lost in game 82 to the Timberwolves, and they made it into the playoffs, and they won a series against the Spurs.
Yep. That was
right?
like Wancho and Gary Harris.
Yes, and then they lost in the second round, game 7 to Portland. But like looking back, it was like, we're finally over the hump. Like, here we go. The Avs, that game 82 against the Blues,
Yep.
where they scored in overtime,
And
I
everybody's
believe.
on the ice.
Yes,
Yeah.
everyone's on the ice to make the. That's where the Broncos are in their arc right now. Like last year, to me, was the loss to the Timberwolves in game 82.
Yep.
And now you get to do the climb, which is by far the most fun part of being a fan. Like, in a weird way, once you win the championship, you're kind of just like, okay, well, nowhere to go anymore other than to just
do it again.
win the championship again.
Yeah.
From right now, where the Broncos are to the next time they win the Super Bowl,
Yep.
is like just sports nirvana.
Yeah. Assuming it's linear, which hopefully is what happens.
Sometimes it's not.
Yep.
But it's still
But
the
even
climb.
then, it's going to be epic.
Absolutely.
Like, it wasn't linear for the Nuggets either with the MPJ injury and
True.
stuff, but
Yeah.
there's nothing like the come up, dude.
Totally. No,
Nothing like
absolutely.
the
I mean, those were the most fun Nugget seasons. I still remember being in college, like skipping parties. Actually, so when we had a graduation party for the 4 of us who lived in our house, one of the games was like a pin the tail type game, but it was different stupid things I'd said over the course of the year. One of them was, I can't go because the Nuggets are on. And so it's just because I said it so often, because I just refused to go out whenever the Nuggets were on TV, because that was like the incredible year when the Warriors are awesome and the Nuggets are like knocking them off. Broncos are there.
All right, we have some NFL breaking news right now, which does impact the Broncos here in an unfortunate way. Guys, Robert Spillane, another inside linebacker, off the board, signing with the Patriots right now. And I got to say, so it was like Nick Bolton was high on the Broncos list. Sherwood was very high on the Broncos list. Spillane was on there as well. All these guys are now gone. Levante David, Ernest Jones was on there too.
Yeah.
All these guys are gone now. One guy is left, Dre Greenlaw. And he is a guy that, when healthy, is super talented, but that's a big win. And we kind of touched on this earlier. How willing are you to dive into a guy that not just has missed 40% of the games in the NFL, but has played like 20 snaps in the past 14 months?
I mean, it's not ideal. Here's the tough part for me. So I like the idea of having Drew Sanders as like that third linebacker, because at some point you have to see what he has. And if Dre Greenlaw can't play, he lost it, whatever, having Drew Sanders to plug in there is a pretty nice backup plan. Now, the downside, and this is where I struggle to balance these two things, is that, like we said, the Broncos are in this era where they're trying to go upward and move forward.
Yeah.
And you don't want to... Well, first of all, here's the scenario where that plays out. So let's say Dre Greenlaw shows up and you find out by week 5, like, oh no, this guy doesn't have it anymore. Well, what does that mean? Are you giving up 150 yards per game in the first 4 weeks of the season? Because you're losing games if he doesn't play well. Then you throw Drew Sanders in, and obviously there's the chance that like things don't work out. So while I like the idea in theory of, hey, if it doesn't work, throw Drew Sanders out there, maybe he'll pop, there are downsides to that plan on the football field, which concerns me.
You were also pointing out how they were able to patch holes last year,
Yep.
too, I mean, who doesn't want to write the headline, it's a Dre Day and everybody's celebrating, though?
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
I was
think
thinking
it was,
Robert Spillane as my headline.
There you go.
Wow.
So you can write that now that the Patriots signed him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Did you
Bye, Bobby.
Were you just going jokes, or did you have?
Oh, I
anything else?
just jokes.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. The hardest part about this is, I think when healthy, Dre Greenlaw was the best player of all of those.
Yeah.
guys.
Without a
Yes,
doubt.
by far.
And so it's like this is the classic free agency thing. You get so enamored by the great tape that's out there that, especially in a desperate situation, you can kind of close your eyes and just be like, screw it, sign him. But you just have to do it understanding and knowing the risk that he might not be the same guy, and we would not know until we saw him on the field as a Bronco.
Yeah.
And that's
Buy
it's a
the
risk.
dip, though. That's what
That
free
is the
agency
other-
is.
yes.
Like, buy low when you can.
Here's the thing,
now,
though.
I'm not a doctor.
Are you going to
So
be
it's
able
important
to
to remember.
Are you going to be able to buy low? Because I totally agree. And Dre Greenlaw, it was like my number one free agent
Yeah.
when healthy. Just after talking to the Broncos, I know how concerned they were with the medicals there. But now it's him. And then a massive drop off now. And it's not just the Broncos that are after Dre Greenlaw. The 49ers want him back. There's other teams that are involved as well. And so my guess is what it's going to come down to is how many years are you willing to give him? A guy that is coming off pretty much an entire season out. Are you willing to give him 3 years with the first 2 fully guaranteed? You might have to now, instead of just that 1 year prove it deal that you might have been able to get him on if all of these linebackers that signed yesterday hit the open market now. But man, I would be tempted, especially because we know, by knowing the Broncos were interested in all of these guys that signed in the past 24 hours, how much they wanted an inside linebacker, how much they wanted to Let Drew Sanders develop and not have to have him be that day one starter. That tells me a lot right there, that they wanted all of these guys. So maybe they are in on Dre Greenlaw right now, but just how risky do you want to be with it? But if you think you can win a Super Bowl right now, which again, I know the Broncos feel like they can, don't you take a little bit of a gamble right here to get a guy that could come in and be, when healthy, the second, third best player on your defense? Like, he has a case. When he plays, he's so good. He could be right behind Pat Surtain in terms of how good you are. Now you had him to DJ Jones to Zach Allen to JFM to Nick Bonito to Riley Moss to Brandon Jones. Like, this was a top 3 defense last year, and you're adding this guy? That's why you sign him and take the risk.
Well, and he's still just 27, Hank.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
So that's where the years on his contract becomes really intriguing. And we've talked a lot about linebacker. Is it maybe with how the market's lining up, time to pivot to like a position like safety, where maybe you have a few more talent-rich options and the market hasn't dried up to this point?
That's where you'd think the value is. Again, like, you also wonder the DJ Jones deal. If Nick Bolton hadn't been signed, would they have wanted to use that money on getting Nick Bolton to Denver in that kind of run stuffing type role?
Well, Henry, that's a fantastic point, because yesterday, mid-afternoon or so, DJ Jones tweeted a quote. It was a picture of a quote, and the people on Broncos Twitter that saw it kind of went crazy. If you have it, you guys can pull it up for us on the screen. But the quote that he had was, if you don't know your own value, somebody will tell you your value, and it'll be worth less, and it'll be less than your worth. So what's that tell you? The Broncos, to me, that tells me the Broncos offered DJ Jones a contract, and he said, that's less than I want. That's less than I think I am right there. And that was at, 12:13 p.m. He signs at 10 p.m. I think I got a text at 9:55 p.m. that the deal was just being finalized right there. In those 9 hours, you have 2 or 3 big-time inside linebackers go off the board. So just reading between the lines, Henry, I think you're spot on right there. I think the Broncos wanted to spend big at inside linebacker. They realized they weren't going to be able to spend big at inside linebacker. And then they said, okay, next best thing for our inside linebackers is to plug up the middle of that defensive line and get DJ Jones back to help linebackers. And now you can do the exact same. You can look behind the inside linebacker and go to safety as well, where there's still a few big names there.
And we saw last year that when the Broncos weren't thrilled with their second inside linebacker, they opened the year up with a penny front, which we talked a lot about, where you've got the 5 guys on the line of scrimmage, which means Zach Allen, JFM, and DJ Jones, along with your 2 edge rushers, and then only Alex Singleton at linebacker. Yeah. So they're able to patch that up. And so you kind of had the option to go 2 different routes with your kind of like base nickel, how you play the nickel more often than not, which was maybe let DJ walk and just go with that more traditional 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers. You can go either way there, and I wonder if that forced their hand. And the other thing on the DJ Jones contract is that, you know, he had a 3-year, $30 million deal last time.
Yeah.
This year it's 3 years, $39 million. So that's
really
like
2 years guaranteed, 26. So.
The exact same as before. So first 2 years guaranteed. Also the exact same in that his raise was 30%. The salary cap in that time has gone up 34%. So in terms of like proportion to the cap, this is basically the exact same deal the Broncos gave DJ last time, including like last year not guaranteed, like you could cut him. And so I think it just kind of made sense for both sides, basically say like run it back and let's just do what we did last year.
Also, part of all this, the DJ, the linebacker market, as things are heating up, the chat's talking about it. Check out the tweet Harrison slacked us, is that we're seeing this across the board. It's not a great free agency class, and the cap's gone up pretty significantly. So teams are keeping their own guys and making that extra investment. Lay it on us.
From Ryan Edwards saying that the Broncos are talking to Talanoa Hufanga.
That's actually from Jeremy Fowler.
Oh, him too?
Well, Ryan Edwards is reporting what Jeremy Fowler is reporting.
Okay. Sorry, I saw Talanoa Hufanga and just...
Give Fowler his flowers.
And one of my we're missing someone on the show.
Yeah, so. We are missing someone on the show.
One of my faves.
That could be
my
exciting.
bays.
So let's go back. Again, so I covered the Buffs before this, and that was back when Talanoa Hufanga was playing for USC.
Yeah.
So that's a guy who I knew very well as a football player, not obviously personally. Incredible. Like, he was an absolute beast at USC. That Rose Bowl performance he put together, just ridiculous.
Like early in his career, then injuries and his stock kind of, but
Yes.
a total phenom.
So
then go ahead.
He wound up as a 5th-round pick because he didn't test well athletically. You know, he's not the biggest safety, bad 40, whatever, but he is an absolute dog. He has the hair flowing down like the back of his jersey. Looks
Troy
like
Polamalu.
Troy Polamalu,
100%.
also USC safety, a guy who he works out with on the offseason, goes to the NFL, goes to the 49ers, first team All-Pro as a 49er, and then tore his, I think it was ACL, might have been Achilles, and then hardly played at all last year as he was kind of working his way back.
An absolute dog. I mean, that's what pops off when you watch him. Doesn't matter where the play is, he's hustling to it. If you give him a chance to make a play, he's making it. This dude is a tone setter.
Absolutely.
For a defense. So hopefully.
Still waiting on it. Still waiting on the official word. The reporting
Phenomenal
from
instincts
Jeremy
on him.
Fowler is that they're working on a deal to get him done. So it's not fully done yet. But this is a guy that you want an inside linebacker. He's not a full inside linebacker, but he is big and physical, like you guys were saying. And this is a guy, just like Dre Greenlaw, when healthy, man, he is a beast.
Just 25.
Yep. And
Like,
he just turned 25.
If you're going to go heavy on free agents, that's the guys that I would really emphasize on. It's why I like Greenlaw. Try to get those guys who are just entering their prime.
Absolutely.
And again, though, the injuries just, it's a reason why these guys are free agents. He probably never would have been a free agent if it weren't for that. And the only thing I'll just say here is he didn't test well athletically, which is why he dropped. And so you worry if he loses a step because of the injury, how does that affect him?
Exactly. Because like the physical traits, 6 foot and 3/8, a little under 200 pounds, 4'6", 440, 12 bench press reps. The testing was not good at all. But if it was good, then people would have said, oh, this was the best player in the Pac-12 that year. Like, he's the best, one of the best safeties in all of college football, consensus All-American. And so the best safety in all of college football that year. If you were to tell 2021, Henry, that Talanoa Hufanga is going to be a Bronco, I would have cried tears of joy. And I'm still, well, we got Dion. Dion, do you remember playing Hufanga? Could you put the mic on?
I don't think there is a mic with
no.
four of us on set.
Oh, we'll do it eventually. But Dion, who played Hufanga back in the day, I mean, that guy was electric.
Well, you remember.
And he's electric in the NFL too. 2 years ago, he's the first team All-Pro.
Yes.
A Pro Bowler, just insane.
Well, one of the stars of that Niners defense that went to the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
And it's looking like another bit of Broncos news with Matt Pert coming through the wire.
Matt Pert's coming back?
Yes.
Looks like it. Per Cliz, seems like the Broncos have signed him to a 2-year deal.
There you go. And just depth behind your starting offensive line right there.
Yeah. And that one's interesting because, Alex Palczewski was your swing tackle last year. Matt Parrott got the first opportunity when McGlinchey and Bowles went down. But eventually Palczewski went in there and played really well, played so well that we wondered if when McGlinchey's healthy, is it a tough decision to put McGlinchey back in the starting lineup? So Parrott is an interesting signing because now he's probably slotted in as your second backup tackle, who's also kind of that sixth lineman who they rotated in last year.
Yes.
I don't dislike the move. I'll say that I wasn't like thrilled by how he played last year, but you kind of brought him in as a high ceiling reclamation project. And so saying that was year one, kind of the baseline, let's build from there. Definitely not a bad move.
Prototypical measurements. He's a prototypical
Exactly.
developmental tackle. Another guy in his 20s who you're giving free agent dollars to. So I think that's smart.
Didn't start playing football until like high school.
Well, and you're never going to say, like, the Broncos had this backup tackle, and he was unbelievable.
Palczewski.
Once in a while, you might say that.
Okay.
I will say the Broncos do love Quinn Bailey love the depth that they have there with him.
Depth on the offensive line, what a concept.
That's what you should do.
Especially when it's not that expensive. You know,
And last year, they had to tap into it, like, consistently.
Yeah.
And it never like reared its head like it normally should.
Yeah. And it reminds me of like we haven't talked about the Mitchell Fraboni deal yesterday, which kind of makes sense because he's just a long snapper. But I was shocked when I saw it because it's a 3-year deal for a long snapper that's $600,000 total, more than just the minimum salary. And you just don't see long snappers get more than the minimum because that's not a place where you waste money. And this year in particular, this is his last year before his veteran salary minimum would not count for the full amount. It'd count for like a younger player's, which is when you see a lot of long snappers get cut, which has happened to the Broncos before because it just costs like the extra few $100,000. But then you think about it, it's like, wait, if you really think this is a good long snapper, does $600,000 over 3 years really matter? And it's kind of that same thing where it's like, yeah, maybe Matt Parrott, who knows, maybe he doesn't even make the team because you wind up saying like Quinn Bailey is our backup or second string backup tackle, however you want to phrase that. That makes sense. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out. And obviously the ceiling is there. You keep a guy in the building. You don't feel like you have to reteach the entire room what's going on. It's a good move.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of another move we haven't touched on, but people on Twitter had their feelings about it big time yesterday. Jarrett Stidham, when we're waiting for this other news to come in and become official, what'd you guys think of that?
What feelings could anyone possibly have about that?
People had feelings.
Oh, wrong. Oh, people were pissed.
I didn't say they couldn't. I just want to know what.
Yeah.
They were mad.
The feeling
people
was
people wanted Zach Wilson back instead.
And it started last offseason when Jarrett Stidham was talking to the media, I think like beginning of training camp. And somebody asked him like, so like, if it was basically like, do you want to be the starting quarterback? And he's like, yeah, I want to be the starting quarterback. Like it's a competition. I want to win it. And most of Broncos Twitter kind of melted down and said like, you can't say that. Your job is to mentor Bo. Like you can't even say, and which was ridiculous. And so there's been this anti-Stidham thing ever since then where it's like, he's a bad teammate. He doesn't do it. Which is ridiculous. It's 100%
talking about
not true.
Bo Nix's best friend?
Yeah, you're talking about Bo Nix's best friend, who apparently does not support Bo.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, that was what made it such a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Is the relationship that those two guys have. It's just like, yeah, you keep this going. This is a little different, but one of my biggest like pet peeves of the dark years was when Drew Lock was actually rolling, and then they changed the offensive coordinator, replaced the quarterback's coach, messed around with the room, and it's just like, for me, I want to keep a good thing going.
Yep.
And so with those two, they have a great relationship. Their wives have a great relationship. Like, don't mess with it.
And hopefully, I mean, actually, I shouldn't say hopefully. Hopefully, Zach, he's always been a great guy. I've thought he gets an opportunity to go out there and fight for a starting job somewhere. If he doesn't, though, and the Broncos can bring him back for cheap, I would love that too.
Same philosophy.
Exactly. If you just run it back with those same three, there's no like trying to get one of the guys up to speed. There's no worrying about like, oh, we've got to teach this guy the offense. You just pick up right where you left off last year, which is so valuable.
This was the most predictable move. In fact, I wrote it over at DNVR.com a week ago from today that Jarrett Stidham was going to be the Broncos' backup quarterback because Sean Payton loved the room last year. But look, Zach Wilson's going to have an opportunity to potentially have that Sam Darnold role this year where he gets to compete with the rookie, potentially be a starter. And Zach Wilson just saw what Sam Darnold did. Now, Sam Darnold might get big-time money from the Vikings. He might get big-time money from the Seattle Seahawks. He's the biggest free agent quarterback out there, which means big money. So the Broncos always knew that Zach was going to have more of an opportunity there, and the Broncos were going to make sure they brought back one of those guys. If Zach Wilson's still out there in a couple of days, they would love to bring him back, but Zach knows he can have a better opportunity somewhere else. So it was always going to be Jarrett Stidham. There was another reporter in Denver that was writing how it's not going to be Stidham. It's going to be some other outsider. That was never in the Broncos' plan, from my understanding. And the Broncos made sure of that by re-signing him before he could hit the open market. So this is what you should do. Bo likes him. He helped Bo last year. You re-sign him. You help Bo out.
And he was the number 2 out of 3.
Yes.
So do you want the number 2 back or do you want the number 3 back?
You want the number 2 back. Especially because, like, if you're really all in on Bo and say, like, Bo is our future, you don't need to worry about upside from a backup quarterback. Like you can kind of leave that off. And I
but you
agree.
guys know everyone loves a good mystery box.
Oh, of
we
course,
do love a mystery box.
Especially
Everyone
the backup
loves-
quarterback spot.
Exactly.
And Zach Wilson can throw the ball 80 yards in the air. We saw it. And really quick, we are not ending the show right now. We're going to go into overtime right now.
Bang,
and
bang.
if you're tuning in and want to catch overtime, go to thednvr.com. to tune in to the rest of what could be another hour of talk right here. In overtime, guys, let's start it off right here. What happens with the Broncos this next hour?
Hufanga happens.
Hufanga and Evan Engram.
I
That'd
might
be
cry.
legendary.
Yep.
What are your vibes on it being a Dre day, Zach?
On it being a Dre day,
If you were in the Bet365 control center and they were like, hey, we're putting up these Dre Greenlaw next team props, the staying at the Falcons is in the mix, and then there's those
Niners.
And then there's those three other teams. One's Falcons, one's Broncos, and I forget the other one.
I would say
Where are the Broncos?
lower. I would say focused on Hufanga right now.
Okay.
Yep.
I like that.
Yep.
And Hank, can you play with loaded boxes with Hufanga to where the math is like
Oh yeah, you can play with loaded boxes with Hufanga.
fine with you having
yeah.
that guy coming downhill, and maybe you worry less about your run stuffing linebacker because you've got a heat seeking missile in the secondary?
Yeah, which
seems
100%.
It's a 1-for-1. Like, just follow the timeline. The linebackers go off the board. All of a sudden, his name pops up as a big target. Like, that's exactly the way they're thinking.
Like it would just be so electric. What?
Yep, guys, I can confirm right now that they're close.
Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, I mean, I love that.
Ryan is a numbers guy.
Big time, by the way.
So he wore number 29 with the 49ers.
Yeah.
That's Jaquan.
Good number.
So that's not going to be an option. USC, he was number 15. Nick Bonito, though, now number 15.
Right. That saved his career, by the way.
It did save his career, which obviously saved his career.
Yeah.
Like that was the flip. What number for Hufanga would make him pop?
Can you tell me what's available in the 20s?
Available in the 20s. I can in a second. Off the top of your head, kind of. While I look it up.
I mean, he could actually go 42.
He actually could. I mean, get 43 Troy Polamalu.
Yeah, or 43.
He
Why
could.
not 43?
Keedron Smith is 43. So 40s, you got 44.
Yeah, he can have 43.
46, 47.
No, none of that. None of that.
20s, you got, well, they aren't giving out 24. All taken. Single digits, you've got 5.
Would be nasty.
7 won't obviously happen. Teens, you've got 11, 12, 13, and that's it.
I'm a sucker for 11, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it works positionally.
Fair.
Give me just give me 43. Sorry, Keedron Smith.
Okay, sorry, Keedron. I kind
Sorry,
of like 5.
Keedron.
43. Is that only a good number because of Polamalu?
Yeah.
TJ Ward.
Yeah. Yeah, TJ Ward.
It's a good safety
Yeah.
number. Darren
Sure.
Sproles
Dude,
look good in 43.
BJ Hufanga has a like Ward D-Stu vibe to it.
Totally.
He does.
That's like that kind of safety pairing.
Yeah.
Guys, think about this. The Broncos finished as in a top 5 defense last year, and they're adding, potentially, it looks like they're going to add an all-pro to their secondary. In the secondary, you've got first-team all-pro defensive player of the year, Pat Surtain. You've got a first-team all-pro safety in Hufanga. You've got a guy in Brandon Jones that has done something that no Broncos safety has done since Steve Atwater with 100 tackles and 3 interceptions last year. And then on the other side, you have a guy, Riley Moss, who started a cornerback last year, who was graded out unanimously by everywhere as a number 1 starting cornerback until he got hurt late in the year. And then you had Jaquan in the slot. This is an unreal secondary. Unreal secondary.
Unreal defense.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. Because that front's pretty exciting too.
100%.
I mean, that corner group, if you could do something in the nickel, all of a sudden you could start having conversations about compare them to the no-fly corners and who's better. I think Riley has the upside to be better than Bradley Roby was,
Absolutely.
And I just objectively, as a pure lockdown, I could make the argument that Pat has more than Aqib did.
No, there's no question there. Pat's the best out of all of those.
Bradley Roby's a first-round pick.
No, I know. I know.
All right.
Yeah.
Just making sure people aren't sleeping on Bradley Roby.
No. Of course. in AFC news, the Chiefs gave Jalen Moore a bunch of money to be their solution at tackle. And he was kind of a journeyman guy for the Niners, right?
Yeah.
How much did they pay him? 20 mil?
15 a year, which
15.
is I mean, that's
Getting him for
exactly
2
what you
years.
want to see from a division rival.
100%.
15 million a year for your tackle. Like that just means you're getting a couple sacks a game. Like those are the guys who you feel like you have to do something, and so you just have to do it, but not unless their scouting department's great. Not somebody who's going to go in there and solve all their problems.
Yeah,
Love to see it.
100%.
Love to see it.
Yeah.
Man, this is the Broncos are rocking and rolling, and it goes back to what we saw. It looks like they're gonna probably sign Evan Engram. It looks like they're close to signing Hufanga. These are two guys that immediately come in and change the team right away. And this is the first day of free agency. You know when the Broncos are involved heavily on the first day of free agency? It's either when they have so much money because they stink and can't re-sign their own players. That's why the Broncos have been in the right tackle market for so long until they finally got Mike McGlinchey. Or it's when they sign Aqib Talib, DeMarcus Ware, and they're going for a Super Bowl.
TJ Ward.
And TJ Ward. And I'll tell you what, this team is way closer to that version than it is to the depleted version. So this is really exciting today for Broncos fans.
And I think that the way this is unfolding kind of points to why maybe Sean Payton wasn't so married to going and getting a wide receiver. Like I think most of us felt like would be the move the second the Bills game ended.
Yeah.
To me, it's almost just like, all right, well, let's just beef up this defense, get creative with the offense, and, win that way, which is basically the way you won last year. But you make the defense even better, and you make the offense even better, and now you see the path.
Yep, 100%.
Rather than using your entire availability on one player.
Well, and also when you look at it, does Sean Payton trust himself to be able to unlock Marvin Mims more and unlock Devon Vele and help Troy Franklin and find someone in the draft? Or does he want to bank on someone else having to unlock a safety? No, he trusts himself. I can guarantee you Sean Payton is a very confident guy, and he likes that room a ton. Look at Marvin Mims, the final 2 games of the season. He had 4 touchdowns in the final 2 games as a receiver.
Yeah.
That's the type of guy that Sean Payton thinks he can unlock with Marvin Mims. They are going to extend Courtland Sutton at some point this offseason. That's all Sean needs. Sean wants one wide receiver. He had Michael Thomas, and then he just brought in other guys, made him good, and then they went and got paid somewhere else. By the time Marvin gets paid, maybe you're paying Marvin, and then that's when Courtland Sutton's deal is expired, and he's moving on there. So Sean Payton is not a guy that values that position so much where he's going to pay $20 million. That's why I said last week, Chris Godwin, he'd be fun. He's not on the Broncos board, so no surprise there. But a spot that Sean needs and wants, and he's made it so clear publicly and privately, that joker spot. That's why getting Evan Engram right now would be huge, because if not, and Henry, we broke this down last week, in free agency, the tight ends are tough, especially with Zach Ertz going back to Washington, Mike Gesicki going back to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
It was going to be tough. I mean, it was going to be pretty darn clear where they're going in the first round if they're not able to get Evan Engram and those other tight ends re-signing, because it would have been a very clear hole at tight end there, and then you would have been desperate, and then maybe you trade up to 16 in order to get Colston Loveland when Tyler Warren's off the board at 6 or something like that. So that's why locking down Evan Engram today, not letting him leave the building, is going to be so key.
Yeah, that's why that would make you not have to feel like you have to do something silly and trade up for Colston Loveland. You know,
That would be really silly.
It would be, but when you're pinned like that, you just don't have many options. And so if they somehow come out of this with a tight end, a safety, a linebacker, even if it is just, bring Cody Barton back, bring Justin Sternad back, somebody you've seen, somebody who can compete with Drew, see how it plays out. Then all of a sudden you get to go into this draft and it's just best player available. You don't have to worry about need. If you like Matthew Golden, it's Matthew Golden. If you like one of the running backs, it's one of the running backs. If it's a tight end, if it's a line, it can be literally anything. And that just means that you're going to get better value out of those draft picks instead of feeling like we have to go get this position with this pick.
To me, like right now, the way that they're building this, I'm almost thinking they get aggressive for running back.
I've had that thought.
Because
In
again,
free agency or the draft?
in the draft.
Genty.
And you just start to imagine the way that this thing is trending. Like I was just talking about, beef up the defense, make that strength even stronger. Find Bo a nice little safety outlet at tight end, and then just get the best running back you possibly can, and just say like, we're gonna run the hell out of the ball, we're gonna play great defense, and we have this electric young quarterback who can make big plays for us.
Absolutely. And then like you also throw in there, again, you still, to me, you don't sign a running back right now, because as we've seen, like the running backs are not flying off the board in free agency because it's not a great class. The draft class is awesome. You'd expect most teams to wait to address running back until after the draft when you figure out what they have. So you get to go into that draft probably with kind of this open-ended option at running back where you can trade up if you like it, where you can see if you like a guy in second round, third round, fourth round, whatever it may be, and then patch whatever else you need, whether it's somebody who you trust to handle a bunch of carries, whether it's somebody who can provide some receiving threat, whatever it may be after the draft, because that's when all these running backs should be going off the board free agency-wise.
I think the Broncos are going to go right now as it stands with it looks like Evan Engram coming here, the Broncos land in safety. I think they go running back in the first round, but I don't think they trade up. Unless Genty's there at 16 or something, you make a little move up for him. But guys, I think there's bad news when it comes to if you want the Broncos to get Genty. It might be worst case scenario.
Raiders.
I think he's the Raiders pick. With them going out and getting Geno Smith, now they don't need a quarterback right now. According to reports, they want to pay him like tons of money. Okay, go ahead, do that. Raiders, very classic Raiders move right there. Genty's the pick right there. This is Pete Carroll. He wants to win now. He got his win now quarterback. Geno Smith, you don't need to develop clearly. And so that's going to be the pick right there. But I think Sean Payton is okay with that. He doesn't want to spend a future first-round pick in order to trade up to get Genty. But this running back class is so
unbelievable,
deep. And when you look at it, Alvin Kamara, third-round pick. Sean Payton knew he loved him in the draft process, traded up to get him in the third round. I think that's what's going to happen. Travion Henderson is a guy that screams a Sean Payton type of running back, and I think the Broncos do add someone in free agency and in the draft. I think like J.K. Dobbins, we talked about him on Friday, would be a great addition. So much upside. Yeah, his floor is really darn low because of his injury concerns, but he's not your only plan. So you can risk with a guy like that and gamble on a guy like that because he's not your only plan there.
To me, I look at the Raiders, and it's like you just had Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
Like, I think Ashton Genty's really good, but he would have to be like clearing Josh Jacobs would be a big step for him. Like, like Josh Jacobs is no slouch, and so you did the like bridge quarterback with a great running back, and what did that get you?
It got you to the point where you just let him go and got a couple coaches fired.
Well, it's a new era, you know. They got Geno there.
It's a Tom Brady era.
Yeah, Brock Bowers.
Okay.
The ghost of Hunter Renfrow.
Go right ahead.
I mean, if it's not the Raiders, I think Bears right there, who just revamped their offensive line.
Yep.
I think the Cowboys very much in the mix. Like, yeah, I think Genty's just so good in this class that it's going to be hard for him to make it to 20.
I think a lot of teams are going to look at it the way we're looking at it and say, man, why would you get over aggressive for Genty when there's like 7, 8 really, really good backs in this class?
To me, there's just a difference between like guys who you think could be starters and could even be Pro Bowlers and Ashton Genty, who there have only been a few prospects like him in the past decade, you know? And I know you disagree. I know you disagree. But like I'd take Genty over Bijan. I'd take Genty over Christian McCaffrey. Like to me, it's him, it's Zeke and Saquon, and it's just a freaky talent who I wouldn't be able to pass up on.
I think he's the best in this class, which is a really good class. I'm just not at like generational levels with him.
Well, I mean, we just said Zeke, so I think generational is off the table because that's within a generation. But yeah, I think he's right there. I agree completely. But again, there's lots of options in this running back class, and I think maybe that sets up perfectly to like trade down, and maybe you're able to still add a running back you really like, and RB2, RB3 in the class, still add a high-end linebacker maybe at that point, and still have your pick at 51 to get that receiving joker tight end to develop behind Evan Engram. You know, like there's going to be lots of options, and I like not being too aggressive and trading up. Like we finally have all our picks.
True.
Just use them.
Yep. And I really don't think Sean Payton would want to trade up for a running back, which kind of goes against everything you would think because of how good of running backs he's had.
And he's the trade-up king.
He's the trade-up king. And this isn't George having influence on him. I just think that he believes he can make a great running back elite. He can get a guy that's a tier below Ashton Genty and make him Ashton Genty. And that's why you hired him, is to make this defense or make your offense just elite with good players, but not great players. We have some breaking news coming down the line. We don't need the noise for this one because it's something we kind of already know, but we know the terms for Robert Spillane. And guys, this inside linebacker market is nuts. Yep. Robert Spillane gets 3 years, $33 million, $11 million per year. What I'll say, Henry touched on this earlier. Alex Singleton went from the Broncos having all the leverage 2 months ago, a guy coming off of injury on the final year of his deal, only $1 million of his $6 million guaranteed. Now he has all the leverage with the Broncos right now because his $6 million deal is incredibly affordable. Plus, the Broncos clearly wanted to add another inside linebacker, haven't been able to, so now he is gold to them. Now he owns the power on them. He might be asking for an extension. He could ask for an extension this offseason or early into the start of next year and double his pay because of where this inside linebacker market is going. So it is crazy how in a couple of months, honestly, a couple of hours, 48 hours, 24 hours, how much has changed with that inside linebacker market and how it impacts the Broncos.
Yeah, and the Broncos can always just say, like, nah, we got you under contract for another year. We'll see you.
Totally.
See you soon.
They did it with Courtland Sutton last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Todd Davis, player coach, man. I'm telling you. He's in shape.
Wow.
I asked
He can do it.
I sent a text saying, "Are you gonna unretire right now? Because I think you'd make a little more with being a player than a coach."
Yeah.
These deals are nutty, though.
The only thing with Singleton, again, I love Singleton. It's a great deal, but he is 32 and coming off a torn ACL. And especially in that conversation with Dre Greenlaw, where you say, like, hey, even if Dre Greenlaw doesn't work out, you've got Drew Sanders, so you can at least see what he has before you have to really patch that hole. It might be a little bit different math when you also have somebody else who is coming off an injury.
Totally.
But
Go ahead.
I was just going to let me remind you when it comes to feeling comfortable about Drew Sanders, they wanted all the guys that have been re-signed in the past 24 hours. I think that tells you, like, man, we haven't had Drew Sanders just play inside linebacker for an entire season, an entire offseason. They know he needs development there. I think they're very scared about that. And I think the Broncos understand, like, we have to have Alex Singleton here, especially if we don't have someone else there.
But again, it's like as a backup linebacker, you could do worse than like a former second-round pick with some upside.
Third
Year. Yeah, this would be third year.
Third round pick, too.
Oh, third-round pick.
Yeah. I don't know. The Sanders
I
thing
love Drew.
bugs me. Just because I'm like, when have we ever been successful at, having a guy play multiple positions?
Speaking of, Baron Browning gets a little deal yesterday. Baron Browning, outside, inside guy. They finally put him to the outside, gets traded last year. And the deal he got, I think it was $7 million from 2 years, $7.5 million from our friends over at PHNX with the Cardinals. Shows you the Broncos made the right decision to trade him, keep Jonathan Cooper, who's making $15 million now, and then Nick Bonito, who is going to make, where I was told the starting point was $23 million per year for his next contract. And
That was a week ago, yeah.
Yeah, you guys see what Myles Garrett got? $40 million. Now, obviously, he's not Myles Garrett. Yeah. But I thought with Myles Garrett, it wasn't about the money. It was about championships for him.
Yeah, well, and DK Metcalf wanted to go somewhere warm with some stability at quarterback.
Yep.
He went to the Steelers.
They got Aaron Rodgers. Sounds like closing in on
Is that
Rodgers.
real?
Is he going to make
Get,
it warmer?
like, if we have a little break here, can we get just like an around the league catch up? What's going on?
Yes.
Especially with Twitter being kind of down, it's hard to follow right now.
That's the big one. Is people are saying that Aaron Rodgers is close to signing with the Steelers right there. Other news, Carlton Davis got a cornerback, got a 3-year, $60 million contract with the Patriots. We saw this morning that Horn signed a record-breaking deal, became the highest-paid cornerback in NFL history. He got $1 million more per year than Pat Surtain. And to bring this to a Broncos perspective, Pat Surtain, unbelievable deal that the Broncos got him on. Talk about cashing in at the right time. The Broncos signed Pat before he became the Defensive Player of the Year. They have him locked up for so many more years at what's just going to become an incredible deal. $24 million a season is a steal, especially when you look at Myles Garrett, who's making $40 million now.
Yep.
And we would have just been talking about this the whole time.
Yeah.
All the time we've been talking about all these other guys. We would have been, oh, you got to re-sign Pat. You got to re-sign Pat. That would have been like the whole story of the offseason after he just won Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep. And that's why, I mean, over the course of these 4 years on the deal, you probably saved $20 million minimum. And like, there's a chance he would have gotten like 35 a year as Defensive Player of the Year. In that case, you're saving $40 million over the course of these 4 years. Like, that means end of the Bo Nix era, you could just sign a guy for an extra, like 1 year, $20 million. If this is just bare minimum to kind of cap off that roster.
Bucks made the 2 early splashy moves of free agency by signing Hassan Reddick and then re-signing Chris Godwin. Milton Williams, my favorite guy in this free agency class, the up-and-coming defensive tackle for the Eagles, goes to the Panthers, right? Who was the other Panthers signing? Dan Moore, the left tackle for the Steelers, goes to the Titans on the other hand.
How much was Milton? Was it $20 million a year?
I think the figures are still coming out.
Okay.
But yeah, he got...
Wow. And obviously with the Broncos locking up DJ Jones, they're not going to be in the sweepstakes for him.
Drew Dahlman going to the Bears, best center on the market.
Bears are not messing around
Nope.
at offensive line.
That's a good signing for them. But again, like, if the Broncos were going to let Lloyd Cushenberry walk last year, why would they be spending money? So even though like that was one of those spots similar to safety, I think, and like you could probably find an upgrade over PJ Locke. You could probably find an upgrade over Luke Wattenberg. It was pretty clear that wasn't the route they were going to go.
Anything else?
Giants saw in Paulson Adebo, another guy from Hank's days of covering the Pac-12.
Rams,
RIP.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yep.
Yes.
Cincinnati, BJ Hill. Yeah, BJ Hill contract was interesting because there were very few of those like nose tackle types, penetrating nose tackle types like DJ Jones on the market this year.
Hell yeah.
BJ Hill was one of the few of them. Winds up with $11 million a year. DJ gets $13 million a year. And again, DJ's better, so it makes sense. But it's interesting to get that market play out.
Javon Kinlaw to the Commanders.
To the Commandos, yep.
So they go Kinlaw they chose Kinlaw over Jonathan Allen.
Yep.
Interesting.
Getting
And of course, the
younger,
connection there with Washington is former Broncos personnel, Adam Peters, who then was the assistant GM in San Francisco last year, hired as the GM for the Commanders. So no wonder there's a little funnel going from San Francisco to DC.
Grady Jarrett also released this morning by the Falcons. So Jonathan Allen and Grady Jarrett still out there, while Kinlaw and Milton Williams get big deals.
Pretty
this
sure
morning.
Jonathan Allen is now a Viking. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. $20 million a year, I believe.
Shades of Jarrett Allen.
Shades of, yes.
Indeed.
What do you guys think is going to happen with Vaughn?
Cooper Kupp
Contender,
odds have
1 year
not
deal.
changed.
Give him
Where?
just contender. I'm going to start
Okay.
there.
Are
$8
Broncos
million.
contenders? I'd say so.
It's a different level of contender. Like you said before, like they're the kind of contender who like roll the dice on Dre Greenlaw, and if it hits, then that's like the big upgrade that gets you over the top. There are teams like the Eagles where it's not like we need to roll the dice to kind of get over the top. It's just let's just add these couple pieces around the edges. And so I think there's kind of the gap between the Broncos tier and those others.
Yeah.
So I don't think Von Miller is a fit. I think he could be a great trade deadline acquisition if the Broncos need a little bit more pass rush and they're sitting there at 7-2.
There's part of me that thinks Vaughn would just take like a crazy low deal to come back to Denver.
He's made so much money at this point.
Yeah.
And like if he's probably only getting like $8 million on the open market. When you've made that much money, what's the difference between $8 million and $5 million?
I
could see it.
Just look at the history of Vaughn, though. Vaughn, every single chance that the Broncos have tried to get him to take a pay cut, even on the final year of his deal, He said no, and he called their bluff and said, "You're not going to cut me, and if you do, I'll go find that money somewhere else." Broncos didn't cut him, so he called their bluff properly. In free agency, remember after he signed with the Bills, the interesting things that he was putting out about just like, oh, Buffalo, interesting place, like I don't love it and stuff, and it was like, wow, he's taking shots at the place to just sign him. Well, they paid him an obscene amount of money, like more money than anyone expected him to get. He's always gone to the highest price, so I would just say look at his history, and I don't know if he's would be taking a low deal to come back to Denver. And where does he fit in?
Yeah, especially if it's like a backup role or a co-starter.
It has to be a backup role. Are you paying Jonathan Cooper $15 million to be a backup?
No,
He's a backup wherever you go. Like he's been a backup the past couple years in Buffalo too.
To me, he just comes back for the fun of it.
I'd love it. I would love it. Vaughn, let's make it happen.
I mean, yeah, we'll see. But I agree. I mean, the role would be very small.
It would be. Yep. But I mean, if you have Vaughn going into December in a playoff run, and then you have him in January and February, knowing what he does in the playoffs, I mean, he was a perfect pickup for the Rams. I would love it if he was willing to say like, yeah, I'm here for the run. I'm here for the fun to win one with the Broncos and retire. I'm all for it. I just don't know if history shows that would actually happen.
And this would be his fourth. He would go to a fourth team if he didn't come back to the Broncos or the Rams.
Correct. Yeah.
We'll see.
Who would be that team?
He does still have the chance to become the first player to ever to win a Super Bowl with 3 different teams.
Yep.
So maybe he just goes to the biggest favorite or like the Ravens.
It can't be the Chiefs. Vaughn.
It won't be the Chiefs. He will not go to the Chiefs.
I think Vaughn bleeds blue and orange too much to do that.
But
maybe the Ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ravens. I guess he just came from the Bills. I almost said the Bills. The Eagles would be one.
Wow.
They lose Sweat, right? That could make some sense.
He doesn't really fit with the 49ers. But I mean, it's those teams that are like
I think
championship or bust at this point.
odds-wise, which sometimes don't tell the whole story, but odds-wise, I think the 49ers were pretty high up there.
Yeah,
last
I
time
guess I
saw.
was just kind of assuming the Joey Bosa thing happens, but maybe it doesn't.
I think the Niners' day in the sun is over.
I kind of think the same thing.
Yep.
But I don't think they agree.
Yeah, you've come back on the show just in time for your Kyle Shanahan's overrated theory to
he's
like
so
come
overrated.
back around the sun.
I don't think I
that's
had
me.
that theory.
I think that's me. Kyle Shanahan's very overrated.
Great old bit.
Yep. No, not a bit. Just straight facts.
Right.
6-11 last year.
It's come back to be
As Sean
true.
Payton says, next time I win fewer than 7 games will be my first. Sean Payton's never done that. Kyle Shanahan has done it a couple times.
Every other year he does it.
Exactly. Oh man, Henry, you okay?
Yep. Tremon
Smith going to the Texans.
Yep, back to the Texans. I mean, it makes sense because the Broncos are just in a weird spot with that cornerback room because obviously you've got your top 3. Your next 2 up are Damari Mathis and Chris Abrams-Drain, both of whom have had like some great moments. Chris in particular has some upside, but there isn't a lot of like guarantee off the bench. There's no veteran presence. And Tremon Smith just never was going to see the field as a cornerback, pure special teamer, and one of the best special teamers in the NFL. So it kind of makes sense to get a veteran who you can trust a little bit more to play on the field back there. And on top of that, Tremon was brought in by the previous staff, Mike Westhoff and Ben Kotwica. So when they redo that whole special team staff, it makes sense that would be the time they go the other direction and not give Tremon another $3 million per year contract to be a pure special teamer.
Yep.
Going back to the Texans where he came from also makes sense.
Guys, how about this one? Should the Broncos have been in on DK Metcalf? We've touched on it, but the official deal was the Seahawks traded Metcalf to the Steelers for a 2nd-round pick, then gave him a 5-year, $150 million extension. Should the Broncos have been in on that?
No.
Absolutely not. I can't imagine giving up a second-round pick to be able to give that contract out. That's pretty crazy to me.
Well,
Let me ask you this. Would you like to give Cortland Sutton $30 million a year over 5 years?
No.
Because that's the way that DK Metcalf has produced the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I did. Last year, Cortland Sutton had more catches, more receiving yards, and more touchdowns than DK.
Well,
Yep.
and it's like fit and utility in that Sean Payton offense. Like DK's great. He's a absolute specimen, absolute freak athlete with his size and speed down the sideline. But he is a bit of a one-trick pony,
Yep.
a bit limited. And I think what we've seen in Sean Payton offenses is, yes, he likes those big outside wide receivers, but he likes more of those possession, nuanced route runner guys. And then he's creating those deep opportunities more up the seam with those tight ends, more with those receiving backs.
And then pockets of space in behind for.
So, I think Cortland's a perfect fit. Vele promises to be right in the mold of what Sean Payton has been able to develop throughout his career at wide receiver. DK a bit more of an awkward fit, though maybe just that name value, he checks off all the boxes. So I think that's where, that dedicating that much of your cap just doesn't make sense.
And I'd say Cortland Sutton has some of those similar traits. And that's what made him potentially an awkward fit initially, which is probably why the Broncos were listening to offers for the first couple of years. But he's settled into that role really well, being able to the pure short stuff is still coming along a little bit. There were a couple drops here and there, but for the most part, he's fit that role a lot better than I had expected him to, and probably better than Sean Payton expected him to, considering they were considering moving on from him.
Keep your eyes on Broncos being interested in Greenlaw, with him being the only inside linebacker that's out there, and it's just about figuring out the price. And how do you price that? Guy that when he plays,
That's
great,
what
but when he plays,
that's what makes the negotiations probably so interesting to be in that room, because one side is saying all pro, the other side is saying, or was he all pro? Maybe not quite.
I thought he
That's
was.
Hufanga.
Either way, one side's talking about how good he's been, the other side's talking about how much he hasn't played.
yep.
And you just go back and forth and try to figure it out.
And the bigger thing is it's probably a bidding war. There's probably a few teams that'll whoever pays the most kind of sets that market.
And if you're the Broncos, you kind of have to draw a hard line in the sand in your head and just say, okay, if someone else wants to pay above this, we got to let them do it.
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
You have to.
What's that number?
I have no idea.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree.
If Spillane went for 11 a year?
Yep. With 20 million guaranteed.
So I'd imagine more than that. Again, I mean, there's Nick Bolton, for example. Again, 2-down linebacker, but really, really good and provides some other things. But in that kind of mold, he kind of maxed that market out. The market for guys who are the 3-down can cover tight ends, there just isn't a long list of them. And so if he was healthy, you're talking $20 million a year.
Oh, yeah.
So does that knock it down to Nick Bolton? Are you now paying top tier 2-down linebacker? Does it knock it down to maybe it is only 11 million? But I struggle to think
maybe a little lower since Spillane got his deal earlier on.
No. I wish we could say that. I don't think so, though.
A lot of people have been pulled out of the market.
Right.
But I guess there's still 3-4 teams deeply in the market. So
Yep.
be interesting if he ends up getting more because teams got more desperate as the other guys went off the board.
Well, and there's reports that the 49ers want him back. Well, they might lose Hufanga to the Broncos, so that might open up some more money for them to be able to spend right there.
Yeah.
And guys, really quick, according to Peter Schaefer, the deal for Matt Parrott is 2 years, $7 million, up to $10 million with incentives. So, I mean, that's decent money for a backup right there. So they plan on him being their backup swing tackle, maybe even guard this year.
Yeah. I mean, he was a minimum contract last year. So this is pretty significant compared to that. Again,
Well, the McGlinchey injuries have been a thing.
they have. But again, Palshevsky by the end of the year was the guy who would take that.
Yeah.
So now you need, if two guys get hurt, that's when he gets on the field. But which odds are happens at some point this season. Knock on wood,
I'm
though.
seeing some notes in the Toyota chat, which shout out to everyone tuning in with us. Hit us with a thumbs up. We've been going for an hour and a half now, so we've kind of hit everything, and now circling back a little bit. But some people are saying the Broncos haven't done anything in free agency, and I'd push back on that. They did sign DJ Jones last night heading into free agency, and they've got Evan Engram in the building right now. When someone's in the building, betting odds would be minus 500 that he's a Bronco, minus 1,000 that he's a Bronco right now. It very much is in play, or likely that he's going to be a Denver Bronco. And then also they're close with Hufanga. They're trying to work out the deal there too. And then Greenlaw is still in the mix. So yes, while the Broncos haven't signed an outside free agent an hour and 35 minutes into this thing, they are close to potentially, like in the recruiting boards, going to the top or close to the top in terms of guys they could get. So I think they are really working right now.
I would love to be able to just go back and watch that 49ers defense. If they get Greenlaw and Hufanga, that would make the study
Makes
so
your
easy.
job way easy.
I know.
I just
And that was back when it was really good, too.
Did they play the Jaguars that year?
Wow. That's the game.
That'd be epic.
Can they cover Evan Ingram?
Greenlaw.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet
That
you
whole-
they
I'm
that could
sure
be
they
so
did
easy.
it. Guaranteed they did.
Yeah.
With Warner, Greenlaw, and
I think
Hufanga.
they played the
I'm
Broncos
sure they
that
locked
year.
him up.
The film gods.
I have
never,
notes on
never
Hufanga
give
against
you
the
those kinds of
Broncos.
assists.
Oh,
Here, I'm getting a little worried about Hufanga. This is just taking too long for me.
it's fair. Or it's his agent doing a really good job.
Well, I feel like when you're working and it's not getting done in what, I don't know, 30 minutes,
Yep.
there might be a bigger gap
Yeah.
than it sounds like on social and from what you've heard. So I'd like to get that news in the next 24 minutes.
Yeah, when we're still on air.
Yeah. DJ Reed
Yep.
to the Lions.
Going from the Jets to the Lions.
Yeah, going
They're
back-
replacing Carlton Davis.
Yeah, Carlton Davis to the...
Morgan Moses signs with the Patriots too.
Really quick, guys. I know this isn't the film, but the stats 2 years ago when San Francisco went into Jacksonville and beat them 34-3.
Yep.
You guys were right.
Film
The
gods, thank you.
Jacksonville, or San Francisco was able to shut him down. He had 4 catches on 7 targets for 12 yards.
That's why that defense was
Yeah.
so unbelievable.
By far the worst
Yep.
game of his season, I'm imagining, because he had like 142
12 yards
targets.
is the worst. Yeah, the second worst that he had was 28. So less than half of those right
That's
there.
epic.
That
film
was
to study.
I mean,
It is
that,
epic film
That
to
was
study.
playing
Wow.
into the teeth of what made that defense
Yeah.
so great. Like, of course he wasn't going to have a good game.
That was the year that he had 114 catches for almost 1,000 yards too.
Well, there was... What did they both would have been on the team when we had that Thursday night game, right? Was that Thursday night or was that Monday night Broncos 49ers here?
That was Sunday night with,
Sunday night.
with Russ.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was another good game from them.
From
The 49ers defense.
yes.
Well, yeah, wasn't it 10-9, 11-10?
I thought it was
something
11
like that.
11-9?
Jimmy G ran out of the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
Arlovsky
Yeah,
style.
that's how they got to 9.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
he threw a pick 6 after running out of bounds.
There we go.
I mean, this is when you grow up and you start to contend is you actually start focusing on the positions over the middle, you know?
Yes.
Right?
It's all just
big boy
bells and
football.
whistles on the outside. And can this guy be a real long-term building block? The Broncos are past that phase
Yes.
of the rebuild and okay, let's add some stability up the spine of the defense. Let's
That's
add
DJ
a
Jones.
consistent seam guy, you know?
DJ Jones, Dre Greenlaw, and then
Hufanga.
Hufanga. Then offensively, obviously invested so much in the offensive line. Ingram's your kind of seam
Yeah.
tester, middle of the field tester. You had that running back, and all of a sudden,
And then the
straight
running
through,
back-
the middle is incredible.
And that's why when you look at teams that are built the right way, that have long-term success throughout the history of the NFL, they build from the inside out. And it starts with the offensive line and the defensive line. And that's exactly what Sean Payton did right when we got here. We had our guy, Chris Sims, on right before free agency at the Super Bowl. And he said the Broncos are going to go out, Sean Payton's going to go out and sign a lot of big effers. And that's exactly what they did. They've continued to build up the line. They've invested in 4 of the 5 positions on the line in terms of big time money on the offensive side of the ball. And then on the defensive side of the ball, paying DJ Jones $13 million a year. They signed JFM to that deal last year. They're probably going to re-up Zach Allen this year as well. That's exactly how you build teams.
Yeah, 100%. And the work George had done in the draft with Cooper and Benito, obviously, and Drew Sanders.
It's crazy
Come
to
on,
think
Drew.
about how much of an uphill battle it seemed like for Sean Payton when he got here.
No kidding.
And how much of that hill has already been scaled.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, going back through, when I was writing about DJ Jones last night, I went back to talking to him at the end of the season. And one of the things he said is like, we just need continuation. We're on the right path. We just took the first step, or maybe we just took the second step. And honestly, last year might have been the second step, because you get to the playoffs and all of a sudden you're only a couple steps away from actually having a chance to win a Super Bowl.
Right, exactly. And someone in the Toyota chat, I'm sorry, I lost it, was saying that the Dolphins are driving the price up on Dre Greenlaw. Who knows if that's true? No idea. But that's what happens when there's one guy left at a position before a massive drop-off, is teams are able to just drive one guy's price up.
You ever been to
there
like
DC?
an auction?
Oh, yeah.
And you're just like, you kind of just want to raise your paddle just for the thrill of it.
But then
Just
what
to, like,
happens if you're the last paddle up?
Anthony Weaver.
You just say like, oh, I was just scratching mine. I had my paddle.
What would happen there? Like, I feel like
I've seen it happen.
Wow.
And they just give it. They like go back to the person before. They're like, okay,
Oh.
so we're at 3,300.
So
They're
no,
like,
no harm, no foul.
No.
Okay.
They can't like force you to pay for it.
I would assume they like have your credit card if you get a paddle. Or
I'm sure
something.
they do, but
Yeah.
still, they like you can be like, no, I didn't mean to. It's a bad look for you.
Yeah, it would be a bad look. So
It's like Scott's Tots situation.
Oh,
Scott's
just
Tots.
happening in real life. I
Yeah,
don't
did
know
you
if you've
see
seen
that?
Do we have time to explain? I don't know this.
Yeah. So The Office.
Do we want to explain?
It's episode of The Office, like 10 years prior.
Yeah.
Michael Scott started a program called Scott's Tots, where he said like, oh, when all of you guys finish high school, like I'm gonna pay for all of your college. You're like,
Uh-oh.
and then one day it just like comes back to him that the time
been
has
10
come.
They're all about to graduate. And so they invite him down to the school. And he
no.
goes and he sits there and they have like a whole song planned where they say like, thank you. Like, and then he has to tell them that he can only give
They've been
them.
writing him cards for years.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Every year it's like, because he's
no.
paying for their college. But instead he says, I can give you each a laptop battery.
Oh my god!
And so they're disappointed. But
Just
now
like-
in real life,
a month before graduating. It's pretty epic.
what's the real life Steve Carell now?
Oh, in real life, Steve Carell, the actor who plays Michael Scott, is now donating. He's paying for kids' schools.
Is it, yeah.
Is he actually though? He's
Well,
coming through with
yes,
it.
yes.
Okay.
I don't think
good
there's
for
a
him.
shtick
He's not as in bad a financial ruin as Michael Scott.
as
That is
Michael
true.
Scott's character was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably an actor compared to like an office manager.
Yeah.
Money's probably a little different
Yes.
He thought he was going to be a millionaire by then, in his defense.
Right. Exactly. Fair enough.
Anyone want to call their shot right now and being a future millionaire?
We got to find a class of third graders first.
True.
We got a class of high schoolers if you think you can be a
Oh, right.
millionaire in the next couple of
The
years.
real one is the real Steve Carell is paying for prom tickets.
That's right.
That's different than
Prom.
college.
Well, I think it's like
quite a lot
dresses.
less.
Yeah, I mean
and,
it's
like,
very nice, but
It's like the whole prom package, not just the tickets. I
Okay.
think. Yeah. I've been told women, as girls, pay a lot for
The prom
for
package.
prom.
Okay.
I don't know what a dress costs, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, probably.
Those are
expensive.
insights you can't get anywhere. My favorite part of the news cycle today was Rap Sheet accidentally tweeting out the Jimmy Garoppolo 1-year deal, but listing him as a CB instead of a QB.
Oops.
Could you imagine Jimmy Garoppolo in coverage?
That'd be sick.
Oh my
Dang.
gosh.
Just like after
Busted me
Moss and
immediately.
DeJean, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
no end in sight.
That would quickly put an end to that right there. We have some official news. The Broncos have officially re-signed Jarrett Stidham. He's back.
Oh, all right.
So for all the
Don't do
haters
that
out there,
anymore. Don't do that
He
anymore.
got us.
I made it clear it's official
I
news
shoulda
right
known.
there.
We didn't know what you meant.
We're still waiting on the Hufanga news to officially drop there.
They needed to say cowabunga and go for it.
Cowabunga Halano Tufanga. That
Wow.
has a ring to
I just saw
it.
Eric walk by. We should start working on the shirt.
That has a
Cowabunga
ring to
Hufanga,
it.
dude. That goes hard.
I just say cowabunga, and we're like, oh, that does kind of sound the same. Yeah, he was such an animal. He was so much fun to watch. Going back to, I was even just looking through my notes, and unfortunately, I didn't take great notes ahead of the draft because I'd watched him so much at all just off the top of my head. But going back and looking at like the All Pro or the All American team that we put together for a draft pod with him and Pat Surtain. Getting to pair those guys together, who like again best safety and best cornerback in college football that year, just unbelievable. The guy's a missile. He's a turnover machine. I hope it happens.
You know what's crazy is Hufanga's big, 6'2", 200. I'd say that's pretty good
Okay.
size. Pat Surtain's bigger. How insane is that? Just shows you how big Pat Surtain is as a corner.
Hufanga plays bigger than listed. Like you think he's bigger, and it's more just the plays that dude makes.
He's just a sicko.
I mean, there's a decent amount of safeties that are 5'10", 190.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, for sure. I mean, he'd be way bigger than PJ Locke, for example.
I wonder.
You'd think.
He's definitely got a couple inches.
I feel like there's
a lot of
Williams.
super chats. Should we start?
Yeah, there are a lot of
Get
super
into this?
chats. Let's hit these right now. First one coming in from Mile
Milton
High
Williams
Sing.
bidding war.
What about Milton?
Milton Williams bidding war has commenced.
Wow.
And raising paddles over there.
Wow. So they gave it to the Panthers, and then they were like, no, we got to keep going.
Well, it was like going once, going to, and then someone jumped in.
Dang. So good for Milton. He's going to get paid. Let's dive into the super chats. You got something else?
No, I was just going to say the Milton Williams bidding war, the Jevon Kinlaw deal. I don't know what money Jonathan Allen's getting. It all puts the DJ Jones money in perspective, and that looks like a decent
deal.
Market value.
Well, what's crazy is $13 million for a true defensive lineman's 20th in the NFL.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot, especially because he got $10 million on his last deal. And man, you look at the stats, and the stats aren't there. I saw someone say, "Oh, he gets less than 2 tackles per game." He's not supposed to get tackles. Yeah. He's supposed to allow Alex Singleton and the inside linebackers to get tackles. And especially if you didn't land a top inside linebacker that you want the backups or the plan Bs to have all of the help they can have. And that's what you get with DJ Jones. So
DJ Jones still slinging barbecue sauce?
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember we were going to try to get it in the bar when he signed.
I was going to say, we got 3 more years.
Right.
Yeah, we really do. At least 2.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right.
And let's jump into the super chats. First one coming in from Mile High Sing, who says, "Welcome back, RK. Glad to have you back. How confident are we with Greenlaw as a free agent and his health? Also, if Evan Engram is signed, is a tight end still drafted?"
First of all, thanks for the love. I think we covered a lot of this. Greenlaw is a roll of the dice, but one that has really high upside. And if Engram is signed, you definitely don't go aggressive on tight end early in the draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Greenlaw, again, there was a moment when everybody was saying, like, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, best linebacking duo in the NFL. On top of that, Dre Greenlaw, like, how did the 49ers hit on both of these guys? It's ridiculous. And then, we haven't said this yet, but he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And so that's why he hardly
Just
played
like
last year.
jumping on the sideline.
Exactly. Yeah, just running back to the sideline. It wasn't even on a play. And so that's what kind of put a stop to all that. And now here we are. And you might be able to jump on the train at the right time. With Engram, again, to me, it means you don't have needs. Like, that's what you want going into the draft, is you don't have needs. And in that way, you can just draft whatever falls to you. Take advantage, like, get as much value as possible. Now, tight end, because it's so deep, that's probably where the value is. Whether that's your second round pick, it's like, oh, top guy on the board, tight end, of course. Or third round, top guy on the board, tight end. At some point in those early rounds, I think that probably happens. But you don't have to anymore.
No, yeah, absolutely. You're not desperate going in. Not at all. Another one from Heising who says, "I predict if cut, Cooper Kupp will be a Bronco." Depends what his value is. From my understanding of this, of course, the Broncos will take Cooper Kupp on a 1-year, $4 million deal. But if his price gets up to $15 million, this is a guy that's played 66% of the games in the past couple of years. That's hard to pay that $15 million right there. So if it's like a very cheap deal, then yeah. What do you guys think of Devontae Adams signing that deal to go be with the Rams? I think it was 2 years, $46 million or something like that. You're out?
Overpriced.
Yeah. I still think you're probably getting 1,000 yards out of him at this point. But I think you're more likely to miss that and miss it by quite a bit because of his age than you are to be like, oh, we got 1,200 out of him. So just the upside isn't really there. But I think when we look back, we probably say, like, yeah, not far off from market value.
It's also a team just trying to capitalize on a small window with Stafford coming back. And
Yep.
you're able to replace your veteran wide receiver with another veteran wide receiver at cheaper dollars and a guy who's less injury prone. I wouldn't love it for the Broncos, but I think it makes sense for them.
I just want to know what Kelly Stafford thinks about it.
Oh, she'll tell you.
Yeah,
I'm sure. And I'm sure the Rams will. I'm sure the Rams will love to hear it.
I will be.
Yeah, the Rams will love to hear that. Next one coming in from Matt Dean, who says, "Great to have you back full time, Ryan. Hope all you guys are well. With some of the top names on your board signed, what are your guys' hopes the second day? Or
2 day.
Yes.
I mean, Talanoa Hufanga.
Yep, Hufanga, Greenlaw, Ingram, and sounds good on all three fronts. Outside
pull
of that,
off.
outside of that, I
One.
don't have.
They get one. Let's go down the line. Broncos
Hufanga.
get one.
It's Ingram. To me.
Hufanga.
That's fair.
It would be Engram for me too.
Give me the young superstar potential.
I get it.
25 years old. Very, very fun.
Give me
Like,
700 yards from a tight end.
give me 114 catches. Mile High Mems, our friend, who says, I love RK, Zach, Hank, and Dre. We love you too, Mile High Mems.
Not a big fan of
Our
our
guy.
producers, it sounds like.
Our guy.
Wow, that's tough.
Dang.
Astray says the injury concerns might also be some Broncos fans having nightmares about the 2022 season, which we replaced the conditioning staff after that season. Yeah, I mean, the Broncos conditioning staff has been stellar since they brought him in, led by Bo Lowry. When Sean Payton got here, he made that one of the biggest moves he made. They went out and paid Bo Lowry a ton of money, and he has been worth every penny so far. And then also credit to the ownership for being willing to spend that money on
Yeah.
that, but then also replacing the turf. They've done it at least multiple times every single season. And I shouldn't say turf, I should say grass out at Mile High. So, yeah, the Broncos really have been incredible on the injury front recently.
Yeah. And
Well-
you'd imagine they're kind of involved in some of this too. I mean, those are the guys who are currently checking out Evan Ingram to see, like, do we invest in this guy or is this shoulder not healing right?
I mean, that seems like a really nice way to kind of zig when others zag, as having a great medical staff and being able to take some gambles on these kinds of guys.
Yep, and you get a great medical staff because you pay them tons of money, and
Yeah.
the Broncos ownership is willing to do that. So just another example of why having good ownership matters so much. Wyoming Cowboy says, RK is back, baby. Love it. Does that mean we can also expect RK to be at some tailgates on Sundays as well?
Definitely going to try to be at as many as possible.
Let's go, because you've got 2 shows now a day.
I do.
Yeah,
2 shows a
Broncos,
day.
Buffs.
Yep.
Let's go, baby. We got Julian who chimes in and says, I'm a Seahawks fan and a diehard BYU fan. Is there a chance Zach Wilson goes to the Seahawks? I'm hearing the Titans want him.
Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, seriously. And dropping a super chat.
Yeah, sure.
It would make
Yeah.
sense. It would
I
absolutely-
wish we had something better for you. You watched the whole show for that.
I know.
Zach Wilson to the Titans, that makes a lot of sense, especially if they trade out of that number 1 overall pick, and let's say they get Jackson Dart in the 2nd round or something like that, having Zach Wilson compete with him for a starting job, that makes a lot of sense there for all parties involved.
Just draft Shador, Julian. That's enough with the silliness.
A drunk.
But I hope Zach Wilson comes your way and all your dreams come true. Thank you for
Yeah.
tuning in.
Zach's not the only insider. A drunk guy at the bar last Thursday told me that he had sources saying that the Titans were going to trade number 1.
Wow. Do we have like a description of the guy?
Drunk.
Just
I'm just
source,
gonna leave it
just
at that.
sources?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
leave it at that.
Wow, I like that. All right. Who are they trading to?
He didn't go that far.
Okay.
Before he got back to his beer.
Yeah, that's very fair.
On that 365, the Giants drafting first overall are a pretty high odds.
What? What are we talking?
Like plus 120
Wow.
with the Titans in the minus.
wow.
So it's like minus 120 Titans, plus 120 Giants.
Giants. This is embarrassing how desperate you are.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's why it's so good the Broncos aren't in the quarterback sweepstakes this year.
Sounds like Justin Fields to the Jets, Rodgers to the Steelers. So
Yeah.
yeah, Giants really have to make that move.
Yeah, they
Giants
would.
should just draft Shador.
Of course.
Yeah.
You think they will?
I don't know. Kind of think the Browns might right now.
Vibes are Browns.
Yep. As they apparently are free to move on from Deshaun now. They gave him all his money and can cut him.
Well, and the crazy thing is, it doesn't sound like Shador's like against going to the Browns,
It certainly has not seemed to be that way.
which is unbelievable. Because I mean, they've been trying for what 20 years, 25 years to find a quarterback. They've tried every route and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
And maybe
Getting the
he
best
just walks
quarterback
in.
in the draft this year would be a good place to start.
It would be.
What
But
a-
if there's one place I would not want to go as a quarterback, that would have to be it, right?
Probably.
Cleveland? Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
There's an interesting connection there. Coach Prime has a good relationship with Billy Bill Musgrave, who's the quarterbacks coach in Cleveland.
nice.
Yeah, that is interesting. Oh, wow. Of course, Broncos offensive coordinator here. Let's dive back into the super chats. We got Matt Dean who says 1,300 people watching and only 350 likes. Come on.
Yeah, run it
Hit
up.
us with a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. It
Dean.
helps us a ton,
Yeah.
especially in the off season and especially at this busy, fun time of free agency right now. Robert says, where's my FB love? Do Broncos re-sign Burton? So fullback love there. Do Broncos re-sign Burton?
Why not? Or is he already locked in?
That's
He
what
is
I'm
not.
trying to think. No,
He's
yeah.
not.
They'll re-sign him.
Yeah. I mean, he's gotten the same deal over and over again. It's always like the minimum salary, and because he's a veteran, it counts as like a second-year player's minimum salary, and then they put the maximum bonus on one of those contracts into it. So the weird part is that because he's had that exact same deal year after year after year, like minimum salary, maximum bonus, it seems like it'd be super easy just to lock him up and not even get to this point, but it hasn't happened for whatever reason. And you do have Nate Adkins, who we all think can kind of play that role, so maybe they are trying to move in that direction, but
Nate Atkins.
Nate Atkins made some plays for the Broncos.
Hell yeah, Nate
Absolutely.
Atkins is a baller.
Sean
I just-
loves a traditional fullback. He
Exactly.
That's one of the guys that values it. And the Broncos have actually had coaches that really value fullbacks. You've seen them have a traditional fullback. So
22 Janos.
yeah, exactly. So from Jano to Burton, they're going to have a fullback here. Plus, additionally, I mean, you can have Nate Atkins on top of a fullback
Yep.
like they did last year as well.
Because you
Maybe
want a good
draft a
blocking
guy.
tight end,
Yeah.
too.
Dusty says, welcome back, RK. Got to toss some love Andre's way, too.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Bless
love
you,
for the boys
Dusty.
in the middle.
Anytime they need me, I'm just a phone call away. They
All
know
right,
this much.
4-man set the rest of the year now. We got the group rocking
Fire
and rolling.
up the graphic. I'm
Jibber
ready to go.
Jabber says, started listening to the show to pass time working in a cubicle in the basement with no windows. Now we're out of the basement, and it's great to hear the OG voices back
Yes.
together. Love the show.
Is that like a metaphor about where the Broncos were and where they are now?
Oh, I hope it's a metaphor because could you imagine working in a windowless basement for years?
You have
Isn't
to
that
be-
what Michael Malone says he works in?
There's
Wow.
no way.
That
You'd have
is
to-
what he says. That is what he says.
You
Yes.
have to
what
be
it says.
working on something super important. Like if you're working on like CIA files and that's what has to be like so locked in, like sure, that's
Or
fine.
like curing cancer?
Exactly. But if you're not working on something super important, that should just be like considered abuse.
Yeah, it
Could be.
absolutely should.
Sounds
yeah,
like the
skiff.
Boeing offices are like
A
that.
skiff is where you
Really?
work in like government offices when it's
Yeah.
like top priority,
Yeah.
and there's no windows. So then they put fake windows and just put like a screen of what outside looks like.
Wow.
We're not in there. The
No.
Broncos aren't in there. We're in a good place. Thank you to everyone for rocking and rolling with us today. Shout out to our producers, Jahir and Dion. Shout out to Dre for joining us today. Shout out to Ryan for joining us full time. Shout out to Henry for rocking and rolling with me for the past couple of years. And shout out again to everyone that's rolling with us right now.
Good news about this show ending is that means there will be a signing within the next 5 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
Which means emergency pod.
Yeah, you're going to want to make sure to stay tuned to the YouTube channel. Make sure to turn on alerts, subscribe to the channel. We're going to go live whenever a big news goes down. Make sure to stay tuned to thednvr.com. And of course, worst case scenario, we're back at 11 a.m. tomorrow, going back to our normal show time at 11 a.m. So thednvr.com, on Twitter over at DNVR_Broncos, and of course on YouTube. Thank you all so much for rocking and rolling with us on a 2-hour free agency special. We'll be back at latest tomorrow, 11 a.m.
We all silly like the mayor.